Thanks for staying with us. Time now for African News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the former right-hand man of Ivory Coast's jailed former president is to be handed over to The Hague and the International Criminal Court to face war crimes charges. Ivorian authorities had been insisting they could try Charles Blé Goudet themselves. He denies orchestrating any of the post-electoral violence the country suffered in 2010. Also, a renovation that has further tarnished the reputation of South Africa's president. The country's main opposition party files corruption charges against Jacob Zuma over the $23 million of state cash he splurged on sprucing up his private home. And close but no cigar. Anti-smoking campaigners say Senegal's new laws on lighting up in public don't go far enough to ensure maximum reach for efforts to get people to kick the habit. First up, Ivory Coast says it will be sending the man once known as jailed former President Laurent Gbagbo's street general to The Hague to face charges of crimes against humanity. Ivorian authorities have taken their time responding to a request from the International Criminal Court that Charles Blé Goudet be handed over. The government had wanted to try him before national court over his role in post-electoral bloodshed in 2010.
Charles Blé Goudet will face international justice. More than 2 years after an international arrest warrant was issued, the former Ivorian youth leader will be transferred to the International Criminal Court.
The cabinet has agreed to send Charles Blé Goudet to the International Criminal Court. We are going to study how to quickly execute this decision.
Blé Goudet, a close ally of former President Laurent Gbagbo, is wanted on 4 charges of crimes against humanity for his role in the violence that followed the disputed 2010 election. The crisis started with Gbagbo's refusal to concede defeat in the presidential runoff, sparking armed clashes that killed more than 3,000 people. Blé Goudet was arrested in Ghana more than a year ago and extradited to Ivory Coast, where he was to be tried. For his lawyers, the transfer has no legal basis.
I think their decision isn't based on law. It seems pretty clear that it's a political decision. Mr. Charles Blé Goudet is not a special person. If Simone Gbagbo can be tried in Ivory Coast, then we wonder why the same conditions don't apply to Charles Blé Goudet.
Up till now, authorities had refused to transfer Blé Goudet, arguing that he could be given a fair trial by the Ivorian justice system. They are still refusing to transfer Gbagbo's wife, Simone, who is also wanted by the ICC, on the same grounds. Blé Goudet is now set to join his former boss Gbagbo, who was transferred to The Hague in late 2011.
Meanwhile, South Africa's main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, has opened up a corruption case against President Jacob Zuma over the $23 million of public money he spent on upgrading one of his private homes. Corruption charges have also been filed by the Economic Freedom Fighters political movement, led by former ANC youth leader Julius Malema. Well, an ombudsman's report has ruled Zuma's outlay was unlawful, contrary to the ethics of his office, and excessive. Zuma's ANC party has tried to downplay threats to have him impeached. He's due to run again in presidential elections due May 7th, and many South Africans are far from impressed by their leader's misappropriation of funds.
Think about the people first. Think about your country first before you spend money on your own house. Using the taxpayers' money to do something like that, I'm really dismayed. And he will definitely not get my vote.
We thought something better would happen for black people, but when he takes the money and uses it for himself, it's not good. But there's really nothing we can do.
There's the poor, underprivileged children. Why doesn't he help them? Why doesn't he do something about the e-tolling? But he'd rather just spend his money on himself. It's not fair.
More than 1,000 people travelling in boats from North Africa have been picked up by Italian Navy and Coast Guard ships off the coast of Sicily over the last 24 hours. In total, authorities reckon they've intercepted around 4,000 would-be illegal migrants this week alone. Most of those rescues are believed to be from Eritrea and Syria. The Italian island of Lampedusa, which sits midway between Tunisia and Sicily, has struggled for decades with illegal migration from North Africa. The problem has intensified recently because of renewed instability in Libya. Many would-be migrants from across the continent gather there, hoping to be smuggled across by boat. Now, the ongoing crisis in Central African republics forced over 300,000 people to flee into neighbouring countries in the hope of escaping sectarian violence that followed a short-lived rebel takeover last year. Tens of thousands of Central Africans are estimated to have headed to Cameroon. But for those who called Central African Republic home but are not nationals, finding refuge in Cameroon is even tougher, as they may not qualify as refugees. Our correspondent sent us this report from Kentsu, a border town in eastern Cameroon.
They had been living in the Central African Republic, many for several generations. Over 12,000 Chadians, Malians, Nigerians, and Sudanese have fled their host country since the beginning of January to take refuge in Cameroon.
I was born in the Central African Republic. I did my studies in this country. Now that things are not going well, I'm forced to return to my country of origin, to return to Chad.
Awaiting repatriation towards their country of origin, these foreign nationals are now stuck in Cameroon. With no official status as a Central African refugee, they do not have access to the camps set up by the High Commissioner for Refugees, nor to the aid provided by the World Food Programme. They survive thanks to the solidarity of Kentsu residents, some housed by families and in mosques. However, many of them must make do with the makeshift shelters set up in the city's stadium.
It has been 2 months since I arrived here. My family and I have really suffered. There is no place to sleep. If it rains, we will leave. We have really suffered here.
The International Organization for Migration has put into place emergency procedures in Garoua Boulay and Kentsu, the principal entry points for migrants into Cameroon.
We are looking at giving priority intervention, which is life-saving and evacuation.
Last weekend, 661 people were able to board a convoy towards Chad and Sudan, countries that some of these migrants have never been to.
The government will do its best, but one must not expect an availability of funds. One must not expect land. No, I do not think so.
In Kentsu, the International Organization for Migration estimates that 8,000 migrants are still awaiting repatriation. A transit camp that will allow for improved waiting conditions should be put into place in the following days.
Now, supporters of Senegal's new anti-smoking laws hope that it will go some way towards improving the health of the nation by making it tougher for people to pick up the habit. It's a big step, but campaigners say it could have gone further. Our correspondent sent us this report.
In Senegal, a packet of 20 brand-name cigarettes will cost you roughly €1, and you can buy them everywhere, in the shops and on the streets. But thanks to a new law, packets will soon have to outline the dangers of smoking and will be more expensive.
We should always raise the price, but we shouldn't just focus on that. We need to find other solutions and measures that go alongside it.
Bars and restaurants will also be affected. They will now either have to be non-smoking or offer a separate smoking area. The fine for not complying will be as much as €450. This restaurant owner isn't concerned, however. His cafe is already set up and ready to go.
We don't allow smoking here. Those who do want to smoke have to go elsewhere. When there's a problem, we go over and explain the rule to people.
The only snag is that the law doesn't forbid the sale of individual cigarettes, so those that want to smoke will still be able to afford to. After years of pushing for change, anti-tobacco campaigners would have preferred a stricter set of rules.
When you totally 100% restrict smoking, consumption is reduced by 15%, and the number of people trying to stop smoking increases by 80%. That's really important. But introducing other measures that are less strong will not produce the same results.
Once the law has been brought in, tobacco advertising will also be banned from public spaces.
Well, that wraps up African news from me for this hour. We'll be back, though, with more in about 45 minutes. Short break now, though, and Chris Moore will be back with more news and headlines from around the world. Stay with us.
The World This Week Start the weekend with a good argument. François Picard's Friday panel of Paris-based journalists goes around the globe and sets the record straight on the hot topics that matter.
The World This Week, only on France 24 and France24.com.
What do you want from your news website? France24.com, giving you easier access to information and faster for a unique experience. France24.com, the international news website.